Hey everyone. As you can tell, I'm in a different room right now. The other room was getting to be bothersome for me. I actually thought that I could just be cool about it, set up this nice white back screen onto it, say, hey, I can cover up the mess behind me. No matter what I did for it, it did not look good. It actually looked kind of weird. So I decided I was abandoning that feature and said, well, why can't I do it out here on my back patio? This actually was an open deck back in the day. And that open deck was just a good place to hang out for a while. I hurt my foot back July 22nd, 2021, 2022, 2022, July 22nd, 2020. No, I think it was July 22nd, 2021. It's been over 2 years. And I decided that that was a bad situation for me. My glasses are reflecting like crazy down here because of all the lights. But I can't see any comments if I don't wear them. Old age is something. But back when I got hurt, I was on crutches. My foot was in a cast or in a boot or in all kinds of other things, stents. And I didn't have a place where I could go hang out and just say, hey, I want to smoke a cigarette. Well, my place to go smoke a cigarette was either out on the front porch or upstairs in my house. I don't smoke in the downstairs of my house. And so I sat around, hey, Thunderstick, how you doing? So I decided that I needed to close in the back patio. Of course, I was hurt at the time. So what I did is I had my employee, Jimmy, who was a tradesman. This guy's a professional. And I told him, I says, hey, let's close in this back patio. I've got all the materials. I've got everything, the windows to everything for it. And let's just close this thing in. And he was like, all right, yeah, we should close it in. That way I can come out here and turn this into a smoking room. Now, what's really ironic is that window over there, go over this way, that window over there behind me opens up into my kitchen. So I kind of leave that closed when I'm out here most of the time. But during the winter, it gets cold. I do heater here. It's a little electric one. And I use that to kind of keep the patio warm. But I was like, all right, well, I'm going to design the room. I need you to build it. And we kept going and we kept going and kept going. But what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? So by the time I got all said done, this propeller fan that I've got over top of my head right here, that was actually bought from my wood shop probably 5 years ago, I think. I've owned this house now for 4, going on 5. But before I bought the house, I bought that fan and I was like, all right, let's put that in the wood shop because it's like really cool. It's just a 2-blade ceiling fan that looks like an airplane propeller. And I was like, all right, I like airplane propellers, especially wood ones. And I was like, yeah, buy that, put that in the wood shop. And it would have been all right, I suppose. Let me turn off a couple of these. It is pretty nasty. I do have a lot of lights on out here, so I'll shut one off and see if that doesn't maybe help a little bit. I'll be right back. All right. Does that do any better or is it worse? That's no better. All right, well, let me go back and turn the other ones on, turn the main ones off then. I have a lot of lights. I like lights. I don't like sitting in the dark. There we go. All right. Yeah, no, that's a little better, I guess. But yeah, I have two LED grow lights or LED lights up in the ceiling over here, and then over on that side, I over top of the windows, I got two 4 foot long windows that are sliders, and both of those windows have an LED grow light over top of them. That way, I can. Yeah, lights are fun, buddy. Lights are very fun. I decided when we built this that because the windows were 4 foot long, that I wanted to design this thing so that I could put shelves over both windows and be able to just go in and say, hey, this would be really cool if I could hang a shelf by chains and start plants out here. This is full south facing on that side. You can't really see the windows. Let me see if I can show you one of these windows. Yep, my guitar. Yeah, that window's not really going to show much because it's my laser is trying to out that window and the TV is in front of it. But I decided that, hey, let's make this so that if I want to start plants, I got a place to grow plants. So I said, all right, that's a cool place to do it. And over top of both ends of each window, there's a 2x6, so that I can put screw eyes in there, and I can run pieces of chain down and hang a shelf basically, and make it so they're mobile shelves and they can go up and down as plants grow or whatnot. And the same lights that are over top of the windows that are grow lights are the same lights that are in the ceiling. Only difference being that the ones in the ceiling are not the same light intensity as far as the grow light part goes, because the grow lights are they're bright, but they're not the same brightness as they are in this room. The lights that I just turned off, those are really bright. I like it. I like it a lot. Understick, I am surprised you and I are the only two in here right now, but thank you for hanging with me, buddy. Anyway, so yeah, I got a laser in this room. This thing is an Homestead 60-watt CO2 laser. It's huge. I can probably give you a glimpse of what it looks like, but I can't get too far carried away on that because it sits right here beside me. But it's an easy, almost 4 feet long, 3 feet wide, and maybe counter height tall. It's a big one. I didn't go for the little one. And actually, the reason why I bought this laser was because a friend of mine, Mike Navarro, down in Texas, I sent him some tins that I wanted him to run on his laser, and I told him, I says, dude, I'm only gonna do this one time, and this is for you to shine. This is for you to tell me whether or not that laser that you've got is the laser that I need. And he ran it, and I sent him 24 tins. And the tins that I sent him were already painted black or anodized black aluminum. And I said, dude, show me what your laser is capable of. Give me your link to be able to buy one to where you can get paid, and let's see what happens on this one. Well, what he sent me looked just like this. But let me hold it straight. It looked just like this, and I'm going, yes, absolutely. That is exactly what I was hoping that your laser could do. And so he sent me the code. It's an expensive laser, I'll be honest with you. All lasers are expensive, but I've got 3 diode lasers upstairs. I've got an Ore Tour, which is probably the first one they came out with. Then I've got an Alien Nation one that was a 20 watt. That was a big step up from the Ore Tour. And then I bought into it, and I was like, all right, wait a minute. X-Tool D1, a 10-watt laser that can do better than the 20-watt laser can. So I bought that one. And none of them, and I mean none of them, could give me that result on that tins. And I was like, I want that result. So I bought the tins. I had them shipped to Texas from Amazon. He did them. It was expensive. I'm not going to lie about that. Shipping them to Texas was nothing. I mean, that was cheap. but he had to mail them from Texas back up here to New York. And while he was doing them, he did a live video showing that he was doing these tins for me. And I watched it. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I could not do it on mine. So I bought it. And like I say, they're expensive. I think the Artura was about $250. The Fox Alien was about, uh, geez, I'm going to say about $400. The X2 was closer to $700. The Tech that sits beside me, that was in the neighborhood of almost $4,000. This thing runs with a refrigeration unit to keep the water cool because CO2 lasers aren't allowed to be hot. He runs his in Texas without one. He just does it in a 55-gallon drum of water. I don't have room to put a 55-gallon drum of water anywhere near my laser. So I went with the little 5-gallon bucket for probably the first week while I was waiting for the refrigeration unit to get sent. I was like, got it delivered. The 5-gallon switched over to the, and the whole situation ended about $4,000. And I was like, at these ends, I don't care. At some point in time, that will pay off on its own. On its own. I've since moved up with the CO2 laser where I did wood plaques. My 40-year class reunion from Dryden High School here in New York was last year. And they asked me, can you do wood plaques? And I was like, yeah, I can. All I need to know is, what do you want them to say? And whose names do you want to be on them? So I did it. I got one down here somewhere. Yeah, I got one right here. Yeah. This is actually kind of funny because I just grabbed a classmate name and threw it on a piece of wood. It doesn't look great. The ones that we actually took to the class reunion were really cool. But this is what we came up with. This is what we came up with. Class of 82, Dryden High School. And I give this guy most athletic because he was very big into the football team and all that stuff. And it turns out that he wasn't even close. They wanted me to do one for most musical, and I laughed about it. I says, yeah, no, that one's not going to happen. Even though you want it, it's not going to happen because for me, as you can see, I have a guitar sitting beside me all the time. You're not gonna get me to choose most musical with somebody who didn't do anything with the band that I'm aware of. They didn't do anything else with me. Thunderstick. Can I do an American flag? Yes, I can. I can. It depends on how big you want it. All right, buddy, I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't going to show this because it's got a lot of stuff on top of it, but this right here is my Homestead laser. This thing is huge. A lot of the reason why there's so much stuff on it right now, I gotta pick my mouse back up. The reason why there's so much stuff on it right now is because I'm also getting ready to do leather hat patches. As you can see, I do embroidery, but I'm getting ready to start doing some leather hat patches. And the leather hat patches can be cut out on this laser. I can do them on any laser. Every laser I have can do a leather hat patch, but only this one can do the actual cutout. And if it's patched where it has a design, then I have to be able to cut that design out. And this is the only laser that I have that can do that. Actually, at a campground we're at, there was a lady next door to us who was really big into doing beadwork. And one of the things that she was doing were moccasins. And they were done in panels. where she did the beadwork first and then put the moccasin together afterwards. And I was over there and I was talking to her, and I was pretty impressed with her work. I was actually kind of amazed. She was like, "Oh, this is so tedious. And these beads are so small." I'm like, "Yeah, they are. They're smaller than a BB. I mean, if you took a BB and cut it in half, you'd probably have two beads in that BB after it's been cut in half. They are very small." But she showed me the leather that she was working with, and she's like, "I got this guy that punches these things out for me," and I'm like, "I live right next door to you on the weekends, honey. If you want them things made, I can put leather on my laser, and I can go through and I can make these for you too. The only difference is the way he does them. They're not burn edges. If I do it, it's going to be a burn edge, which patches look great with a burn edge." And she's like, "You can do that?" And I says, "Yeah, I can." And she was like, "What would you charge me to do a pair of moccasins?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, first thing I need you to do is give me a copy of your pattern so I can measure it to find out how much leather it takes." I will be honest with you. Leather is not cheap. Let me reach over here behind me and I'll grab a piece of leather. I mean, this thing's pretty good size, but this is like a half hide, and this is leather. Give you an idea of what a piece of leather costs. All right, this roll of leather right here is about probably 3 feet wide, and then if I unroll it, it's about 4 feet long. There are no finished edges. Cows aren't square, but this piece of leather right here was almost $80 delivered. So it's really, really cool. I appreciate the fact that I was able to find a place called Weaver Leather Supply where I could get it from. And they also sold me Resolene, which is the finisher. Probably won't show up real well because it's in a plastic bag with a lot of air in it. But this is Resolene. This is what you put on the leather after you're done doing everything else. It's like a leather treatment to keep it from cracking in the sun. But then you also have to have, again, in a plastic bag because that's the way they send it to you. You have to have leathercraft cement. Get it in front of the camera. Leathercraft cement in order to put them on hats. So like this hat right here could have a leather patch on it. It doesn't take a lot of the cement to put a patch on, but it does take some. And I was like, at the campground I got my camper at, I was like, okay, you got these really nice camouflaged hats, and the beam of the brim of the hat in the front are LED lights. The hat itself is all camouflaged. And she was like, "I would really like to have something on these with the campground." And I looked at the hat and I was like, "I'm not putting that on my embroidery machine because I don't know where the wires are." That would be a big mistake because if a needle cut through a wire, the hat no longer works. And I was like, "Let me look into it." And that got me into looking into leather patches. I'm still working on her design because it's not really super hard to do. It's just a full color design with a color background. And I don't have a program in my repertoire right now where I can go in and unmask that background and remove the whole background and then turn it into like a grayscale image so the laser knows what it's supposed to be doing with it. I do have a program available once that part's done to be able to mask out the background, and it'll go in and grayscale it and set it up for my laser, but it doesn't get rid of the background. You can't go in and just put a bunch of tiny dots around the design and say, okay, that's great, it's going to work. Yeah, I'll get it done. It's not a big hurry. she has nobody else working on it right now, so this is just me working on my own thing, which typically I do all the time anyway. Speaking of my own thing, this is funny. I had one of our employees who's never been in my print shop before. He works for me, and no, I don't have Photoshop. What I use is Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer. Photoshop is way too expensive. You can buy Affinity Photo for about, I think it's $40. You pay once, you own it for the rest of your life. And Affinity Designer is the same thing. Almost all of my designs I play with in Affinity Designer. I don't really use Affinity Photo a whole lot. It's a wannabe Photoshop program, but for $40, you buy it once, you own it forever. And I like that idea of owning the programs. I don't want to do monthly subscriptions. And if you do Photoshop, then they also get you to do another one, and then they get you to do another one. And by the time the end of the day is, you're running about $65, $70 a month. When I can buy the whole program for $40 and own it forever, I will not play with Photoshop. I do like Photoshop. I know a lot of people that use Photoshop, but myself personally, I don't like Photoshop. I will not use it. Can I do everything in Affinity Photo that I can? Hey, Biddy Boo, I really want to thank you for what you did for Mike and Lissa. That was awesome. Awesome. You put tears in both of their eyes and mine as well. That was, wow. I realize it's a truck you're not using, but wow. That was phenomenal. All right, back to what I was saying. Betty Boo, you threw me off track here because you, honey, are a person to be loved. In Photoshop, you can go on the internet, like YouTube, like right here, and you can see how to do almost anything you want to do. But if you go over to Affinity Photo and you go to YouTube and you search the classes on how to use it and do different things, you will probably learn just about everything that Affinity does that Photoshop can too. It's just done a little bit different. Affinity Designer, when I got playing with that program, I could not switch back to anybody else's, to be honest with you. Yeah, Spitty Boo, that was all God. And you know what? What you did was phenomenal. Almost, almost as good as what David did with that second gifted building that he got over there at Command Mountain. He said he wanted it for the roof and the roof trusses and maybe some of the 2x4s, and then turned around and said, "No, actually, I just want that chimney. I I want the top of the chimney stack." And it was like, I know he got it for free, as you probably did with the truck. You probably inherited it, but to just give it to somebody like Mike and Lissa, that is phenomenal. I mean, would I do it? Yeah, I would. I definitely would. Actually, while we were at the Lake Tenkiller meetup in Oklahoma, for me that was a long drive. I'm in New York, so that was like a whole day drive over, whole day drive back. Didn't do it all at once, but that was a long drive. I was kneeling down next to Mike, and we were talking, and there was a backpack that came up, and Mike says, "Man, I so need that." And I looked at him. I said, "Well, here's the deal. If one of our numbers draws that backpack, it's yours." And he's like, "No way, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that." And I was like, "No, I'm serious. I don't have a need for it." Well, the backpack went up, and it just so happened that my girlfriend was holding one of two tickets. I don't know if it was mine or hers, and it was called. And she went up and she grabbed the backpack, and as she turned around from the stage to go back to where had been originally sitting, I was like, "Yo, Leah, over here." And she's like, "What?" "Let me have it, Mike. You said you needed it. It's yours." Actually, he used it when he went over there to work with David and Gary and Melanie and all of them over to It's All Grady to do the rafter racing party. That backpack was in the back seat. It was the camouflage one that was right behind Mike. It's a nice backpack. I've always wanted a nice backpack like that, but I don't have a justification to own one. Oh, you bought that truck from your mom? Oh, Betty Boo. Wow. I hope you didn't pay a whole lot of money, but you know what? Okay, because it was your dad's. Okay, I understood that it was your dad's pickup. So, okay. Doesn't matter what you paid for it. I'll be honest with you. I'm the same kind of guy. If somebody needs something and I have it available and they can use it more than I would give it to them as well. That's just I'm not saying it's God's way. It was the way I was raised, where if you have something you're not using and somebody else has a need for it, you just automatically help them out and get them set straight. And hey, if you're not using it and you own it, what's the purpose of hanging on to it? Myself, I've done that a lot. I actually, with my wood shop, I had an extra chop saw. I had an extra scroll saw. I had an extra table saw. I had an extra belt disc sander. And I had them all out in the shop and I put them out in the garage sale. And this guy and his wife came over and he looked at that chop saw and he's like, $175. He says, how much is it for the new one? And I was like, 250. How long have you owned it? Well, I've owned it for probably about 4 years. I've used it probably about 40 times. I got a brand new one in my shop that's better than this one. And he's like, would you take $100 for it? And I was like, yeah, for you, I would. And he got looking around more and he was like, what if I wanted the table saw, the band saw, and all this stuff? What would you do for a package deal? And I says, well, remember the 175 that I quoted you for a price on that chop saw? And he's like, yeah, give me the 150 and I'll let you have all of these pieces. It's enough to open up a wood shop, basically. And he was like, I don't know if we can afford it. I says, well, remember the first $100 I told you I would accept on that chop saw? And he's like, yeah. I says, give me that. We can talk about the rest afterwards. And my employee, Jim, the one that helped me do this back patio back here, actually went over and loaded everything into the car for him, so he didn't have to pick it up. And he was like, so how am I going to get you the other $50 on this stuff? And I was like, it's in your car. You own it. I'm not playing that. I am the kind of guy that doesn't do that kind of stuff. If you want it and you have a need for it, and I have it and I don't, I'm going to give it to you. It's as easy as that. Wow, holy crap, guys! It's 8:30 already. I'm only going to do these for 30 minutes at a time. Sorry, it was only just the two of us in here, but oh, 3,500. Okay. Biddy Boo, while we're here, I mean, I'm not going to run away. If everybody's in here, there's only just three of us in here talking. What year and what kind of truck is it? Because Mike hasn't shared any of that information. He will probably tomorrow when he goes to pick it up. But can you give us a little heads up on what kind of a truck it was? You know, is it four-wheel drive? What brand is it? Is it in really nice shape? Is it not in so nice a shape? Anything like that? 2001 F-150. Okay. Is it a four-wheel drive? I don't believe that they need to have four-wheel drive up there on Command Mountain, other than during maybe the winter time. Mike, he needs paddle drive, not four-wheel drive, but not in bad shape at all. Well, that's good. That's awesome. That's awesome. Me, I never owned a four-wheel drive vehicle in my life until I had a brother-in-law at the time who had a Ford Expedition or Ford Explorer, a big Ford Explorer, the old ones. And he said to me, he says, "Look, I don't want this thing anymore. I'll sell it for like I think it was $1,500." And I looked at it and I said, "All right, I'll give you 1,500." Well, I got it. I got it home. The four-wheel drive didn't work, so that took a benefit of that right out the window, right off the top. And then all of the bushings in the body were bad, so we had to unbolt the whole body from the frame, jack it up, replace all the bushings, replace one body mount, and then put it back down and get everything back together again. And I went and I bought a rebuild kit for the four-wheel drive unit, and it was about $1,800. The bushing kit was probably about 250, I think. The time that I paid my other brother-in-law and some other people, it was like, okay, we're good. I don't care. I lived with him, so it was like, hey, I pay half the rent, I pay half the utilities. If I'm paying you to work in the garage to work on my vehicle, I don't care. But we went through and we did all the bushings and stuff, and then we went in and we totally rebuilt the whole four-wheel drive unit. And I'll be darned, it was like $1,800 for the four-wheel drive repair kit. And right after we got it done, the motor took a crap. And I was like, wow, talk about a honey pot. This thing is like sucking every bit of my dollars. So I put it up for sale. I sold it. Up to about 4 years ago, actually about probably 6 years ago, we were living out in McLean, New York at the time. Those roads were nasty. I had a two-wheel, 1-ton van, and that thing was like a sail on snow. It was terrible. And I had 600 pounds of rock salt in the back of it at the time just to try to hold it on the road. We got it over to McLean, and the landlord had a four-wheel drive truck, and I says, "Look, I'm going to park the van. I need you to give me a ride back to Cortland." And he gave me a ride back to Cortland. And of course, at that time, we had a fairly new Mazda 6. That Mazda would go anywhere in the snow. So I fell in love with that car. I still own it. Um, Actually, my employees are using it now because they don't have a vehicle. All of their vehicles are down. But I had him give me a ride back because there was no way. It took me almost an hour to drive a 45-minute drive. Or actually, not even 45, but 20-minute drive from Cortland to McLean. It was about a 20-minute drive. It took me almost an hour to get there. I couldn't tell where the road was because there was so much snow on them. There were people in the ditches on both sides, and I'm going around between them sideways. And I was like, yeah, when I get this thing parked, I am not driving it back. And of course, my girlfriend Leo was with me, and she was she had her fingers dug into the dash and on the door handle, and she was in a seat belt, and she's over there going, "Jesus Christ, get me out of this frickin' vehicle!" And I'm like, "I will when we get there." So we got to McLean, and I had him give us a ride back home. And once we got it back to McLean, we backed it up to his barn and unloaded all of the salt out of the back. And it's like, we're parking this out front. We're putting it up for sale. It's gonna be like $1,000. Whoever buys buys it. Life goes on. I would love to have a van that I want to turn into a camper van, bitty boo. Uh, the one that I've been looking at actually would be the new Mercedes. I don't know if you watch Trenton Alley from Utah. They've got a great channel, lots of followers. They're still building their house. They're building a garage with a casita over the top, and they own a company called Mountain Made Vans. And at Mountain Made Vans, they take these brand new Mercedes vans, they put them in the shop, and they just go through and cut holes in them and put windows and just totally go through the whole thing. They do really good work. And if I had $180,000 that I didn't care about, I would probably hire them to build me one and then fly out and drive it home. But my thought was always, wouldn't an ambulance make a really, really cool camper? They already come with all the covers built in, and those things are, I don't know, I've never seen an ambulance stuck on the side of the road. I don't know if they're four-wheel drive or not, but I've never seen one stuck on the side of the road. All right. So anyway, scratch back. So when we were in McLean, I actually ended up buying a Lincoln Navigator, and that was four-wheel drive. That was the first four-wheel drive I ever owned, and that thing was a monster in the snow. I mean, it was a tank. It was heavy. It was really good on the roads. It didn't get blown around at all, and it wasn't a very good vehicle. It actually had a lot of issues, and so I got rid of that. And then I bought a Nissan Titan. It was a 2011 Nissan Titan. It didn't have the right tires on it. When I got it, they were actually kind of rock climbing tires, which they sound awesome. They looked great, but they were terrible in the snow. A rock climbing tire is not made to be drove in the north. 2000 is a good year. So I was like, all right, well, buy new tires for it. I had to have the rear end rebuilt in it twice within a 4 year, 5 year period. It was a couple $1,000s each time. I went through and I did a lot of custom work on it. I didn't, when I bought that truck, I paid $20,000 for it. And when I sold that truck, I got seven. And I put probably another 6,000 into it when I bought it. So you get about third back on your value. And when I put that up for sale, I went out and I bought a 2014 Chevy Silverado LTZ. It has a sunroof on top. It's got all the bells and whistles. I fell in love with every bit of that truck except for it's got rust showing like crazy right now. It had absolutely none on it when I bought it. And I've only owned that for, I'm going on year two. So it's like, okay, this is a Pennsylvania truck that looks like it's been in New York for the last 20 years. So I was like, all right, not content with that. Now, like I said, my Mazda 6, my employees are using that to drive back and forth to work. They drive about an hour back and forth each way. And they don't have a vehicle right now. Their new car they just bought, the motor blew up on it right after they bought it. And he was driving his pickup truck back and forth. He's got a Chevy Silverado too, but his is a 3/4 ton and averages about probably 9 gallons, maybe even less, uh, 9 miles per gallon. And his truck got backed into by another friend of mine, and he can't drive straight down the road now. If he lets go of the steering wheel, he ends up in a ditch. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to. And before they even had a chance to ask, I went out to where they were working, and I pulled the keys out of my pocket, and I handed them to him. I says, take this car home, maintain it, don't bring it back on empty, and use this as your transportation until you get one of your vehicles fixed. It just made sense to me. Just before we went to Lake Ten Killer, I bought a 2023 Elantra Limited that has all the bells and whistles that my LTZ pickup truck has. And I love that car. That thing is awesome. I've got over 7,000 miles on it already. It's due for its first oil change where they take the break-in oil out and put real oil in. And now here from ever else, I'm going to be doing oil changes. And my local shop, if I drove back to where I bought the car, the oil change would be $19.99. It's a 2.5 hour drive over and 2.5 hour drive back. If I go to my local shop, which is like a 38-minute drive over, 38-minute drive back, it'll cost me about $53. So Tuesday, I've got it set to go to my local shop to get the oil changed for the first time. And I'm like, can I justify the drive over and back? Well, I just learned the other day, yesterday, that I probably am going to be making that drive whether I want to or not because the call is on recall, or the car is on recall. There is something to do with what they call a stop and go oil pump issue with the electronics that it may at some point stop pumping oil. The car will overheat and stands a chance of catching on fire. I'm like, oh my God. My employee told me, hey, your car's on recall. And I was like, no, it isn't. I haven't got any notices. It's brand new. I bought it March 31st. And I went and looked it up. And it's like, oh, yeah, it is on recall. Son of a gun. They are not going to put out the notices of this recall until September 15th, which means I'm getting the oil changed like Tuesday. That means I'll have probably about 2 weeks where I have to worry about the car catching on fire in my driveway or going down the road. That is terrible. If I wanted to play that game, I would have bought a Tesla. I watch some things catch on fire all the time. They can't be put out, by the way. I don't know if you've ever watched anything electric catch on fire, but Teslas, electric bicycles, all that stuff, the fire department can't really do much about them. They just have to like contain the area and let it burn out. And I own 4 electric bikes, so it's like, okay, that's a scary thought. The first electric bike I bought for myself when I was injured, and I thought, well, this would be cool. I don't have to pedal. Yeah, it was. I drove it or rode it 1 mile down the road that way and 1 mile back. Winter was coming on. I parked it in the basement. In spring, I pulled it out, charged the battery up, put it on the bike, and I went about 100 feet that way. I had to get off without my crutches and walk the darn thing back because the battery died. And so I got a hold of the company. I says, hey, it was Campmore. I says, hey, this battery is no good. And they're like, no, it's got to be the charger. Well, my girlfriend wanted one, so I bought her one, and it just happened to use the same charger. So I took her charger, put it on that battery, and no, it turns out to be the battery itself is bad. So I reached out to him again and said, hey, no, it's not the charger. I got another bike that uses the same charger, same size battery, same everything. And she can ride hers, but I can't ride mine. And I've only rode it 1 mile over and 1 mile back. So I got 2 miles on this bike plus about 150 feet. And they told me, we won't sell you just a battery. And I'm like, okay, who can? In order to change the battery on an electric bike, apparently they all have a universal plug, but they don't all have universal holders for the batteries. You have to find a company that sells the battery. You have to disconnect everything that makes that battery connect to that bike, connect the new one, which probably doesn't have screw holes in the same place or anything else, but the wires will connect because they're all universal. And hopefully you bought from a reputable company. I could not find a reputable company for a replacement battery for that bike. So my girlfriend didn't like the bike that I bought her. I've still got it. It's up for sale. If anybody wants a really good deal on a 24-inch aqua green bike, it's a nice bike. It's fast. I went out and I bought myself another one. Don't ask me the brand because I don't have a clue. It was Amazon and it was like one of the higher end rated brands. And then I went out and bought my girlfriend a 20-inch. I'm pretty sure it's 20-inch. And it has a basket on the front, a rack on the back. It's a really cool bike, and it's fast as well. But yeah, I mean, if you've never rode an electric bike, I used to ride motorcycle when I was younger, and if you've never rode an electric bike, these things can actually get up to pretty good speed. My new one, they said it was only supposed to be able to do 20 miles per hour, and that's without pedal assist or anything. It's just turning the handle and going. That thing has been up to 34 miles an hour. If you're riding that down, like I live on a main country road, actually it's a route at 34 miles an hour, and in farm country, if the tractor pulls out and leaves manure on the side of the road, you do not want to hit it at that speed. It is slippery, it is scary, and it is holy crap. Her bike will do 20 miles an hour, but the minute you sit on it, if it's in high speed and you push the trigger to get going on it, You are doing 20 miles an hour and you don't need to go 100 feet to get there. It is like right off the top. It rips. I've actually done donuts with it in my yard. It was kind of funny. I was like, okay, I know your bike works really, really well. Here you go. Get on. Let's go for a ride. And she was like, yeah, how do I put this down onto like channel one? Hers on one would be doing almost 10 miles an hour right from the start. I mean, you sit on it, you push the button to get it going, and it'll pull out from underneath you if you're not hanging on. It's pretty cool. I enjoy mine. We have an old abandoned campground in our neighborhood, and I took mine over there, and I rode around that campground for almost an hour, and the battery was only down to about 50% use. I don't know how far I actually went because I don't have an odometer on it per se. It probably would tell me if I looked into it to find out how it reads out on the digital display. But yeah, I was almost an hour on that thing riding around in this backcountry old campground that there used to be a state park and they shut it down because too many people were partying and getting hurt down in there. And there was people camping there, of course. You can't keep people out. Anytime you have a property like that where it's state land or whatever, if there's a flat spot and there's an area to put a tent, they'll be there. But I was over there for almost an hour just riding around and checking it out because I haven't been to that campground since I was a kid. And it was really cool. I mean, I never pedaled once. I couldn't. My foot doesn't move that way anymore. But I just sat in the seat and took it slow, took it easy, went for the ride, met a couple people down in there that were walking, met a couple other people down there that were camping, and it was a really good time. I would do it again in a heartbeat. All right, guys. I said I was going to keep these at 30 minutes. Uh, Biddy Boo, sweetheart, you are a blessing for both of them guys. I'm glad to have been able to meet you over to Command Mountain with David and them guys working on tearing down the first building. I hope you go over and help Mike and Lissa again to tear down the second building. But yeah, I can't. I shattered my left heel back in 2021 or maybe 20. I guess yeah, it is 2021. It's been over 2 years. July 22nd. And my left foot has lost 50% use, which means it doesn't go up and down. It doesn't go left and right. It barely moves at all. And they're telling me that the cortisone shots that I'm up for are supposed to be to take away the arthritis pain from it because I ended up with staph arthritis because when they did the original repair on it, they did it with titanium, and I'm allergic to titanium, and it infected my body terribly. I was on a regime of antibiotics, both like I had what they call a PICC line, where they come into your shoulder right here, and they run a line all the way around and bring it down into your heart, and you walk around with a pouch on your side all the time, and it's a 24-hour infusion thing every day. You got to get up in the morning, you got to clean it, you got to change it, you got to do this, you got to do that. Weekly home nursing, the whole 9 yards. I did that for a long time. I don't know how long. I'm gonna say probably in the neighborhood of about 10 weeks, and then they put me on a 6 week deal of having to go in and do oral antibiotics to keep fighting it because it wasn't totally gone, but it was getting really close, and they didn't want to keep me on these pouches because something to do with the pouches is really bad. But I ended up with staph arthritis. That staph arthritis actually turned out to be what made it so my foot doesn't want to move and it's in pain all the time. The cortisone takes it away. But, it was a workman's comp issue. The lawyers that I have are really good lawyers. But the insurance company for the workman's comp, on the other hand, they're not a good insurance company. I don't care who says anything about them. It's Hartford Insurance. They have fought every step of the way to the point where I actually just got a notice in the mail yesterday It said that whatever happened back on 3/22/2022, that was about a $250 expense, they aren't going to cover. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're talking a year and a half ago. I don't have a calendar that shows me what happened a year and a half ago for what that doctor's visit was for or anything about it. But why are you telling me now that you're not doing this? It doesn't make sense to me. I'm actually going to have to call my lawyer and say, hey, what happened on 3/20/22? Because I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a record of it. I keep records of everything, and I'm probably pretty sure I could go in and find paperwork that has something to do with it. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what that procedure was or what that office visit was for or anything else, and they're turning me down now. 18 months later doesn't make sense to me. They should have already covered it. They should have covered it a long time ago, and now I'm finding out no, they didn't. Well, like I say, I've got Joseph Stanley Law Offices, which is one of the biggest injury law offices in our area. And I'm going to have them look into it and say, this is what you did, this is what it was for, or whatever, because I really don't have a clue. And they could probably pull it up on their computer. I'm hoping they can anyway. Right now, I'm set up for my next cortisone shot. It should have happened once we got back from Lake Tenkiller. The 8th of the following month, coming back from Lake Tenkiller, May 8th, I believe it was. That was supposed to be my next shot. And they denied it because my doctor didn't put it in proper. And it took them a long, long time to say, okay, well, if you do it this way, we will approve it. We did it. And then when I got this notice saying we're not going to approve it, I thought it was for that. But no, that was for 18 months ago. And I'm like, well, you better not deny this one because you're full medical for the rest of my life. And if it means I have to have a cortisone shot every 3 months for the rest of my life, you have to cover it. It's not optional. All right. Anyway, guys, we are on here for almost 1 hour. I said I was only going to do it for 30 minutes. Not that I'm complaining. I really enjoyed being able to talk with you, Biddy Boo, because you, honey, are a sweetheart, like I said. And sorry for the knee surgeries and all that stuff, because those things are not fun. My neighbor across the road actually had both knees operated on. And now when she goes out and mows her lawn, she actually has to take the weed eater, ride around on the riding mower to be able to do the weed eating because she can't stay on her feet without a walker. That's not a fun plan. And actually, if the cortisone shots don't work for me, then I have to go get all the bones fused, and I'm not looking forward to that either. Hey, Thunderstick, that's fine, buddy. That's fine. All right, everybody, I'm gonna call this one night. We're 55 minutes out. Everybody have a good night. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to y'all later. Good night. Yeah. Live Mike.